Solo mining is the embodiment of the original dream, a defiant act of individual sovereignty where one person, one node, and one miner take a stand against centralized control. We don't just mine for profit, we mine for principle. We mine for ourselves and for each other and for the unyielding spirit at Bitcoin's core. Join us as we dig in and hold the line. This is the Home Mining Podcast. Hello and welcome back to the Home Mining Podcast by Satoshi, where we dig deep into the heart of Bitcoin mining with passion and curiosity. I'm your host, TwoSats, and today I'm excited to talk with Patrick from On Tethered Mining, a visionary in sustainable, decentralized Bitcoin mining, and his game-changing technology and innovation, Hashtec, which is an industrial space heater, a 14-kilowatt device, mines Bitcoin while heating spaces, slashing costs, and helping you stack KYC-free sats. Untethered's innovative unit is all about empowering Bitcoiners to secure the network and heat their spaces. Patrick, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Awesome, man. Are you ready to get right into the meat of it today?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. Well, I think everybody loves a good origin story. So, for those unfamiliar with you and Untethered, first, what led you to Bitcoin in and of itself? I know we talked a little bit before the show that you were not always Bitcoin only. You had your learning process. Tell us a bit about, how you came into Bitcoin from the start till now.
Yeah, I think it's a similar story to a lot of people. I started back in college. A friend of mine introduced me to crypto, back in the day. And we started buying back in the 2017 peak, and up a few $100s, and we sold, and we were all excited and went and bought some beer and called it a day. And then we kind of started looking deeper into it and bought some GPU racks and started mining Ethereum and heating our place in college. And we didn't really think about it as a business at the time and didn't for many years. Kind of forgot about it after school and came back to it, the 2018 bottoms and decided I wanted to get more involved. I started trading shitcoins and did all that and made some money and quit my job and thought I was going to retire at 21 or whatever. And that was it. And of course, did some stupid trading and ended up, losing most of it, took everything that we had and went into Bitcoin mining and started a Bitcoin mining business. And had to look back. We started with the hosted mining, doing we bought a bunch of S19J Pros at $12,000, $5,000. That was a terrible decision. Did that mining for a long time, moved our units over into orphan wellhead gas. We've been doing that for a while. We're actually in the process of kind of phasing that piece of the business out to move toward the hash rate heating side of things, just because we think that's the future of mining. And so we thought, let's this is our edge. Let's dive into this edge and try and make a bigger business out of this, just because mining is so brutal and so competitive. So that is, for the most part, how we got to today.
You were almost a fully fledged retired shitcoin millionaire, eh?
Exactly. Yep.
All right. Well,
old lessons learned, but honestly, good lessons learned.
Yeah, exactly. I was just talking with somebody earlier and said, that's the cost of tuition for most of us that end up as Bitcoin maxis, is to learn the expensive and painful lesson that those toxic maxis that we love to hate on the timeline, they were right the entire time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And now we're those toxic maximalists. So it's all good. It's full circle.
I know. My family dreads all the holidays when I'm going to rant to them about Bitcoin. I don't even bring it up anymore, but most people just come to me.
Yeah. Not a bad person to be known as, to, if they do come looking to get educated. But yeah, when we're just bringing it up and they give you that funny look, it's a little awkward. They stop inviting you over. We've all been there. Yeah. So what was it that made you become a Bitcoin maxi and move away from all of that stuff in particular? Was there something that you listened to? Was there something that you read, an experience that you had from the studying that you were doing? What led you to move away from everything else and just go all in on Bitcoin?
to be honest, back in the day, we were on a trip and my wife got sick. And so I had 3 days just sitting in a hammock with nothing to do. And so I dove super deep into, learning about economics and the financial system and everything. And I just was like, everything's going to crash. It's all, it's all a Ponzi. And, but at the time, I didn't know anything about Bitcoin. And so I didn't know what the solution was. So I already kind of had that thought process behind it. And then, crypto came along and I was like, crypto is going to solve everything. And it wasn't really until the Sailor series on the What is Money podcast that I sat down and I watched the whole thing, it's like 12 episodes or something, an hour or 2 hours long. And that's when I fully, I sold everything else and I went all into Bitcoin. And since then, I even though I was trading at the time and using leverage and got wiped out by all this other stuff, I was still Bitcoin only. And I mean, since then I've moved completely into just DCA Bitcoin. We operate 100% on Bitcoin. Our business operates 100% on Bitcoin. We use Strike and operate, our lives 100% on Bitcoin, paychecks, direct deposit to Bitcoin. And we just don't even look at it anymore. It's just part of our everyday life. I wish we lived in more of a circular economy where we could just spend actual Bitcoin all the time. But for now it's, credit cards and then you pay all the bills with Bitcoin. But really, yeah, it was the Sailor series and realizing that Bitcoin was really the only thing that was going to save us. It was the only answer, and it was kind of inevitable. I mean, I know it's dangerous to think it's inevitable without us working toward, making it better and improving the whole ecosystem. But I do think it's coming, and it's really the only thing that's going to bring us out of the poor financial state we're in.
Oh, dude, that's awesome because a lot of people just hoard their Bitcoin. They hold it, but they don't really care to spend it, which is the only thing that's going to make a circular economy happen, right? So that I think you're being part of the solution 100%. And I love hearing about more Bitcoiners that are buying Bitcoin. They're selling their services or their goods in Bitcoin. They're holding that, and then they're selling it if they need to for fiat to pay bills. Because eventually it's going to be a peer-to-peer digital currency like it was intended in the white paper. And you're going to accept Bitcoin for your, Hashtec product. And then you're going to turn around and be able to go to your rancher and buy beef with that Bitcoin. And they're going to buy their supplies. And then boom, baby, we've got a circular economy with the hardest asset mankind has ever known. So I think, you're just leading from the front with that. So it's really great to hear that, you're doing all of that. Maybe before we get too far into the other stuff, since we're already on it, what was that decision like for you? Because you're almost like a triple maxi, as Sailor would call it, right? You're taking in Bitcoin, you're holding Bitcoin, you're really doing everything you can with Bitcoin, even for the business, and you're using Strike to do it. What made you make that decision? Were you initially fiat and then you were starting to stash a little bit of those profits away into Bitcoin, or it was right from the start? You're we're going to accept Bitcoin, we're going to hold Bitcoin, salaries are paid in Bitcoin.
At a certain point, once our entire investment portfolio and everything was just Bitcoin, moving to direct deposit paychecks and everything really wasn't a huge step. Anything that was left over after paying bills and was always going into Bitcoin anyway. So it was just a matter of do we have a technical solution that allows us to move into 100% Bitcoin? And when Strike released that feature where you could take direct deposit and you could do bill pay, that was okay, great. We'll just move fully into Bitcoin and not have to worry about it. And then of course, any opportunity that we get, we use the actual Bitcoin rather than just paying the bills with Bitcoin. We'll, any local vendors we can find that'll take Bitcoin, we offer it to everyone. We just bought some outdoor furniture, patio furniture that we paid in Bitcoin. It was his first time taking Bitcoin and we got him set up with a wallet and everything. It was great. Family, anytime that we've got to settle bills or anything like that, or, payments, dinners, that sort of stuff, we offer Bitcoin, and most of the time people take it now, somewhat reluctantly sometimes, but they'll take it. So, yeah.
Oh man, I love that. That is, that's the future, and it's happening now, and it's good to hear that, you're always offering it. I'm doing the same thing out here in Mexico. Anytime I go to a cafe, a store, a market, artisanal goods, do you accept Bitcoin? Do you want to accept Bitcoin? Just trying to get it out there and, do our part to educate and to, I don't know, it's so important to me personally to offer the hardest money. So if I find something valuable, I want you to stay in business. And so I'm going to pay you in a better form of money so that you can afford to stay in business longer. It just seems
Yeah.
like common sense.
Yeah, and it plants that seed. One payment,
Awesome.
right? If you have any amount of Bitcoin, this is just getting off zero, right? Once somebody sees it, and if you can convince them to hold it, not instantly convert it to fiat, they'll see that value go up over time and realize that's what they should be saving.
How many employees do you have?
Right now, it's just my wife and I. My wife Taylor manages a lot of the managing materials and sourcing parts and that sort of stuff. I do more of the engineering side, so the design work. We are very small still, so at least from the mining side, we took some money from friends and family, and to help get them involved, we got into mining on that side. And then on the heating side, that's very new. Like we're still in the phase of let's get a few prototype units out to people and get some feedback. That's where we're at right now. So we've still got a lot of work to do.
Right. I saw on your website that you are running a pilot program right now for the Hashtec, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So specifically, we're looking for people interested and knowledgeable on Bitcoin, and ideally understand mining, that side of thing, because we're not necessarily prepared to manage miners and that whole side of the business yet. Right now, we're really just looking for people that want to solution to heat a space and want to help give us some feedback on the product so we can help improve it before we actually start running production and getting it out there. So we're selling those for $12.50 right now, and then at cost, those pilot run units, and we have a stack of M30S pluses that we're willing to include or sell as well, if you have a hard time sourcing them. So
perfect. And if people want to take you up on that, they can hit you on Twitter or your website.
Yep. Yeah. So Twitter at Untethered _LLC, or on our website, untetheredmining.com. And actually on our website, we've got
those in the show notes.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. And actually on our website, we put together a calculator. It pulls your local, you plug in your zip code, and you can go into an advanced details as well. But if you just plug in your zip code, it'll pull up your weather data for the previous year, and with some default settings for space size. And it'll give you an estimate of what, basically, like looking back a year, how much, if you had spent the last year using this type of heating, how much it would have made you, and what the ROI is for the system. If it's a bigger space too, it gives you, an estimate of how many units you need, all sorts of stuff. So, and I can actually pull that up in a little bit if you're interested.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a great a piece of tech there for people to run the numbers themselves. I know, guys that we've had on the show, Tyler Stevens, Antoine, the guys at Space Denver, they offer heat audits, right? Kate Peterson, they offer a heat audit, right? And so collecting information like that, but to have it plugged right into the website, pulling all that data, and you can just run it yourself with various settings. I think that's awesome. Very cool.
Yeah. That group, I mean, it's been a huge part of our journey as well. Like they kind of lit a fire under us to get our prototype ready to come up to the Heat Punk Summit. We got to meet everybody, and of course we all go back and forth, and that heating calculator was kind of my version of something that Tyler put together, and so just so we could get it integrated into our website.
Yeah, love those guys. Huge shout out to them. They're just the best. They're not against each other. They're all for cooperation and pushing innovation forward. So they're really, in my mind, like a bright spot in the whole industry. The home mining and mining in general can be very cutthroat, but those guys are really working together to provide innovation and solutions. So shout out to all those guys in the heat punk space.
Yeah, definitely check it out if you get a chance.
Let's talk about what moment convinced you that heat reuse was the future of Bitcoin mining. It's relatively new for a lot of people, maybe people that are even like hosting their miners with a mining company. They don't really necessarily think about heat reuse. What convinced you that it was sort of the killer app?
I don't know that there was a specific moment. It kind of built up, right? So back in college, we were heating our house with Ethereum GPU racks. Then my mom needed a solution for her pottery studio, so we threw a What's Miner in the garage, and then we started building our first prototype actually from that. And I don't know that there was a specific moment, but the more I started thinking about it, the more I realized it is the most profitable way to mine. So eventually the industry is going to move that direction, right? I mean, there's no reason it wouldn't, because the entire mining market is driven by financial incentives, right? It's people finding the lowest cost of power, the cheapest way to run, the cheapest operating costs to try and squeeze out as much profit as they can. And as we see hash rates skyrocket, margins just slowly collapse to zero, right? To the marginal cost of production. And we've seen that over many, many years. And I think that the market eventually kind of starts pricing out a lot of these other scenarios where you're paying to mine versus just mining and getting heat, and mining is the byproduct, as Tyler likes to put it. You know, heat is the product, and the sats are the byproduct.
Awesome. Yeah. So we were talking briefly before the show about, you had an experience with buying miners at a really high price and having them hosted, and I was asking you if that was something that you found useful or profitable, and so let's just go back to that and have that same little conversation here on the air. Like, I've looked into it. I've thought about maybe going into this bear market. Do I want to be hosting a miner somewhere with cheaper power rates and all of that? And then when I run the numbers on it, it's like, yes, you can get Bitcoin at a discount compared to the market, the spot price, but at the same time, you might just be better off when you run the numbers to just buy lump sum or DCA and avoid the cost of hardware that's constantly depreciating and things like that. So walk me through your experience with that, and maybe this can act as a bit of a warning or a consideration to people that are out there thinking about what to do next after buying a BitX.
Yeah. So we started in hosted mining. We raised some money, and we went and bought a whole fleet of miners and put them in hosted mining. We were operating at about 7.7 cents per kilowatt hour, and at the time, making decent money. My projections were had a decent ROI of about a year to 2 years, and we thought, okay, great, like, let's just keep buying miners. We're going to host them, and we ended up finding out kind of the hard lesson that really easy path of hosting miners was not going to work out. And looking back, if you did the math, we could have just bought Bitcoin and we'd be up 10x from here, basically. I mean, there's a lot of fancy marketing around the hosting, and you can get sats for 50% off by mining, hosted with us. But you have to keep in mind, that's a snapshot in time. That is the moment you buy the miner. Sure, maybe you're making 50% on those, getting 50% off your Bitcoin, but the hash rate just doubles every year, basically. And I know that won't continue forever. There eventually is there are power considerations or power limitations, hardware limitations and stuff. But as far back as I've been looking, it's basically doubled every year. And your Bitcoin rewards get cut in half every year. So if you're looking at ROI in terms of Bitcoin, you're likely never going to make back the Bitcoin if you're doing hosted mining. It's such a competitive industry. You really need to be in a flared gas, like running your own flared gas operation, where if you have the capital to invest in a genset and in the infrastructure for a site, and you've got the partnership set up with oil and gas, like, maybe then it's a good idea. But you're still, if you break down that capital cost over the term or the lifespan of that natural gas generator over 7-8 years, you still get a kilowatt hour cost. It's not free, just because the gas maybe is free coming out of the ground or near free coming out of the ground. You still have to think about all of the capital cost that goes into it. And so there, I think, are very few ways that you would want to get into larger scale mining that makes sense over the long term and to where you're actually going to get an ROI. If you're just looking for fiat revenue and you're going to go use that fiat revenue as a way to go raise more capital and grow your business and just keep this kind of a little bit of a Ponzi scheme, or not a Ponzi scheme, but this stack of cards growing that I see a lot of the mega miners doing, where they raise their revenues and then they raise some money and then they go buy more miners, and I don't think that in the long term that's going to work out. I think just because the hash rate just keeps growing, you're going to see a lot of that kind of business model go away, where those miners just aren't profitable anymore, especially when you're competing with people heating their homes, which would, at this point, I don't know the exact numbers, but I know it's staggering. I get over double the current hash rate, just by comfort heating. If you're competing with those people that don't care what their cost of production is, and they're just getting sats back as part of their heating process, you're paying to mine and they're getting paid to mine, right? So you're going to lose to that every day. So I think, like, coming back to the hosting side of things, yes, it seems like a decent idea at the moment, but I would really dive into the numbers and try and focus on what is your Bitcoin ROI, not your fiat ROI, because ultimately you'll probably end up with less sats than you started with.
Yeah, exactly. That's the name of the game, right? It's sat acquisition. So, and not to mention, like, the fact that, yes, the hash rate is doubling, as you were pointing out, but the halvings occur, right? So your block reward is going down. So, maybe, ideally, and we all believe it will, and it has to date, every time, after the halving, the price of Bitcoin is higher, but I mean, you can't really bank on a guarantee, right? Nothing in life is guaranteed. As much as number go up, and we all believe that, and we all see it happening, and we assume it will continue to happen in that kind of a trend. Basing your decisions to host miners off of that, doubling hash rate and a declining block reward in terms of Bitcoin being awarded per block, not really looking that great. So I think, you're bang on. The killer application is heat reuse, where you're actually getting paid to mine and to heat your own home, which you need to do anyways. Something that we definitely will continue to need in this world is heat in our homes. And as Tyler always says, it's, I believe, 1% of the comfort heating market moving over to Bitcoin mining heat reuse would add 2 zettahash to the network. That's amazing. We're only at around 1 right now. So adding another 2, it would be huge. And that's at 1% coming over.
And one of the craziest things, or the coolest parts about it, is it's most people on residential electricity rates, it doesn't make sense for them to mine at any kind of scale other than more of a small scale hobby supporting the network kind of level for KYC sats. It's like there's only a certain amount of loss that I think people would even be willing to take for KYC, right? Like, at what point does it not make sense to mine for KYC sats if you're losing so much money and you could just buy the Bitcoin, right? And so, being able to heat your home kind of gives you a way to justify larger scale mining on a home to home basis, or on the average person level, where you're not spending tons of capital and setting up your own site and all this other stuff, right? It makes it accessible to where people can actually have a significant amount of hash rate at home, doing things like water heaters or pool heaters or floor heaters. All the cool stuff that people are building in heat reuse I think is going to enable the everyday person to have hash rate in their home that they control and can decide where it's pointed, or even or solo mining or whatever it is, and it actually becomes somewhat viable. Versus right now it's awesome and it's cool, and I think it's an absolute necessity that people get hash rate in their home, but it's hard to do on any kind of significant scale.
Yeah, getting it into people's homes that are not like into mining, for things that they already need anyways, is the killer hook for me. Like, they need to heat their homes, they need to heat their warehouses, they need to heat their pools, or their greenhouses, or any of those types of things. I mean, that's a much easier pitch. We both know how hard it is to orange pill somebody anyways, and so to try to go at it with, like, here, buy this miner and host it somewhere or run it in your house at a loss is not, but just trust me, because you'll be ahead in the end. It's like not a very compelling initial pitch, especially to an outsider. They're like, so you want me to lose money?
Yeah.
But when you do it with a hash rate heating approach, it makes so much more sense, and I feel like it's such an easier transition into orange pilling somebody that way, because they're going to see that money adding up, and if they want to sell it for fiat, they can sell it for fiat and be ahead. If they want to keep it as sats and let it appreciate over the next 4, 5, 10 years and be way ahead in the future, they can do that too. So, I mean, it's flexibility, it's optionality, it's choice. It's a really good way to go about getting people interested.
Yeah. And even if they're not interested, I would say 99% of people aren't going to be interested in it. They're not going to care that their heater is mining and making, they're just going to care about the outcome, right? Like, I'm making money, it's making money, it's saving me money. And I would say most Bitcoiners don't even understand the mining side of things, or care as much about the mining side of things. And so ultimately, heating is a little bit of a Trojan horse to get Bitcoin in every home, right? I mean, people will see the savings and the money that they're making by heating their home. They don't even need to understand the infrastructure behind it and why it's happening, just that it's happening, right? And it's a lot easier way to get people interested, like you said, once they start seeing Bitcoin in a wallet.
Absolutely. Yep. Agreed. And I think it's also really interesting that it's going to create um, this whole new job area, career area, where people that like are into HVAC can then start to service miners and or install like heat reuse systems. And in traditional um infrastructure, like with that stuff, it's like they make money when shit breaks,
Yes.
right? But if you flip that on its head, and they're incentivized to keep this stuff up and running and supply you with the best service and the best technical support and the best units and parts and service, they're going to be making more money by having their installations up and running and hashing. So I think that's going to be very interesting, because now we're talking about aligned incentives instead of like being opposed to each other with stuff breaking, and that's when they make their money.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's interesting that you brought that up, because I brought that up to Luke Dash Jr. at the Bitcoin Takeover conference in get together in Austin, and I was like, hey, we're in this hash rate heating business. I love Ocean. I love Datum. I want to be able to use these things, but if I'm going to clients and I want to be able to set up, a payment plan with where they can just receive the unit and we receive a percentage of the hash rate, they receive a percentage of the hash rate or the rewards. And a service technician comes in and wants to offer a service package where, I keep your system up, I collect 5% of the hash rate or the rewards. I can't really do that with Datum or Ocean right now. And so I brought that up to him, and I was starting to build out this way to split hash rate at the node level, or at the Datum level, where where you could set it up where a percentage of hash rate would go to the client, one percentage would go to us, percentage to the service technician, and then he put out a PR and it was already done, and and it's already been merged. But so you should actually go check that out. You can do it just based on the address that you put in. So the address that would on the miner that would go to that connects to Ocean, you actually you can look at the docs, but you'd throw in a tilde, a percentage, or a number, and then the next address, and it'll just do the whole split for you, and you can have multiple addresses being paid out on a single miner at the hash rate level, rather than things like Brains, where you have to wait until the reward builds up, and then you can split the reward to different wallets. So it's kind of cool. You can see it real time going to the different addresses.
Yeah. Dude, that is so bullish. I love that. That is awesome. Yeah, the Ocean team is fantastic at making things work and implementation. So I'm glad that they were listening to you and had that up and running really soon afterwards. That's a huge win. That's the kind of flexibility that you need for success, really, in this kind of a field. Being able to do that instead of one person custodies it and then divvies it up, and then all that extra like time that you have to spend doing that. Versus just having it done sort of at the protocol level. Huge win there. Nice.
Yeah. And this space is so great for that. I mean, everybody is so open and welcoming that, you can go talk to somebody like Luke, and he'll bounce ideas. You can bounce ideas off of him, and he'll get you in the right spaces, help you build it. You just don't really see that in a lot of other industries. It's just very open. Everybody's so collaborative and wants to make Bitcoin better at this point. So if you have something that you want to build or design, go find the people. Don't be afraid to go talk to them, because they're gonna be happy to talk to you and help you out. So at least that's been our experience.
Absolutely, yeah. Getting it. Well, I hear the same. I haven't been to any like conferences yet. Definitely want to go to the Heat Punk Summit next year and a few of the others. But I hear nothing but like just the highest praise for the Heat Punk Summit. Every single person I've talked to that's been there said it's their favorite summit or conference. It's just completely high signal. Everybody's such a good person, and they're just hanging out, swapping stories and builds and everything like that. So yeah, I agree. Very, very bullish space when you have people acting sort of in each other's best interests and not just player versus player trying to get a leg up, which you see a lot in the mega mines, in the mining cabals, right, where it's a lot more cutthroat. Not really like that yet with hash rate heating. So it's a good distinction.
Yeah, I hope it stays open, and eventually, right, you'll start to see more proprietary products and ideas, and people won't be as open about it. But for now, it's a really collaborative space.
Do you want to touch on Hashtec's specs, or are you keeping that under wraps?
No, we've got that on the website. I think you touched on it a little bit. It's a 14 kilowatt heater, and that's configurable a little bit, right? So ultimately, it's the form factor and operation of a traditional electric furnace, but rather than a resistive coil, we've replaced that with 4 Watts miners. And so in the production version, there will be a knockout panel, and you can run it from anywhere from 2 miners to 4 miners. And then on top of that, you can tune them from the electrical is only designed for normal and low mode. We don't have it set up and rated for running it on high, but generally you don't want to, with heating applications anyway, you're going to want to downclock, which I think Tuan mentioned. But the form factor kind of allows for you to upgrade different to newer Watts miners and everything, but just because they all have the same form factor, and it's the same electrical infrastructure that you have already for an electric furnace. We decided to not go with residential electric furnace just because we ran into some kind of thermodynamic limitations with the existing design of the miners, and existing HVAC blowers, where existing HVAC blowers are not designed for high static pressure or overcoming high static pressure, and the miners themselves are so restrictive that you can't pull enough air through them once you start adding in all the elements like filters and AC coils, and then every inch of duct and every bend in the ducting adds more static pressure that blower has to overcome. And so we moved to an industrial heater, which it works great for. So you see them in warehouses, you see them in climbing gyms or wherever else, big open spaces. You'll see these heaters hanging from the ceiling. Those are most of the time electric resistance heaters, or they run on gas. And so that's the target market that we're working toward now. And I can actually pull up. I've got a few pictures pulled up on my laptop if I can share.
Yep, you should be able to.
All right. Let's see. Oh, the infinite. All right. So this is our website, Untethered Mining. I've got that calculator here that I was talking about. So you just plug in your zip code. My parents live in Washington, so this is where I kind of designed all this stuff. You've got some defaults. You can update some of these things. I'll just leave them for now. But your desired temperatures, and what it's doing is it's pulling the weather data from that last year for that area. It pulls the state's average electric rate, and then it'll give you a breakdown of like what the cost would be. This is obviously for more like warehouse space, bigger space. So you're going to see bigger bills than you're used to seeing, and this is for the year. And then gives you an idea of ROI and a breakdown of each of the months. But I'll let you let anyone that wants to check it out. This is the heater here. So it's It's not anything special. The whole idea was it was supposed to be boring. We wanted to keep cost down. We wanted it to be that same form factor for residential heating, so that you didn't have to make any changes. And so it is kind of a boring looking product, but that's what HVAC is. It's not a super glamorous space. The miners sitting here, these are some old dirty M30S pluses that we got for pennies on the dollar because nobody wants them, and that's where hash rate heating shines. And you've got your Ethernets coming down, your power cables. Right now, this is a fan spoofer, but you can flash them with the immersion firmware, and then you don't need that. And then this is the electrical configuration. And the whole idea behind this entire design was we want existing HVAC technicians to understand how to work on it and be able to replace components, know how it operates, and be able to work on it just like they would work on any other furnace. And so the only real difference inside of here is we've got this switch for the Ethernet, and then we've got these power cables for the miners coming out, but they essentially are just going to the same components and operating under the exact same principles as a heat coil would, right? So you've got a contactor that is controlled by your thermostat, and the contactor turns on and off the miners. I know it's kind of a old way of doing things, but that's how things have been done in that space for such a long time that we wanted to make it familiar to HVAC technicians. And honestly, it's driven down the price a ton, which made it possible for us to make this product similar in cost to all of the existing furnaces, right? Because people aren't going to want to buy a $9,000 furnace that makes them a bunch of that makes them money during the month. So it's more relatable to client or to customers.
Okay, beautiful. And what are we looking at for hash rate and power efficiency, heat output, things like that?
All of that is going to be dependent on what WhatsMiners you put in it. It's currently only designed for WhatsMiners. So those M30S pluses, those run about 100 terahash. You're talking, it's a 14 kilowatts at normal mode. And so you're looking at about 400 terahash. But really, you could put any WhatsMiner in there that fits that form factor. We've got a list of them on the website. And so, and also, if you take a look at that calculator too, it'll give you an idea of how many sats you would make per month and how much time it's going to be running each month. Because that's a direct.
Your unit comes stock. Your unit comes stock with a certain WhatsMiner?
It does not. So we're selling it just the shell, and the idea behind that is you can put whatever WhatsMiners you have. If you already have WhatsMiners, you could throw them in there. We're also offering WhatsMiners too, so we have some that we can sell. We don't plan on marking those up or anything like that. We bought them in bulk, and we want to make them available to people that want to heat their homes. Or
I got you. So it's modular. It's configurable to what you need. Got you. Okay, very cool.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, that's good. I mean, that's sort of it's sort of in line with what we just saw from Proto, right? That is something that it's modular. You can take it apart, add new things in there as technology advances. So that's really interesting. And just is there a reason why you wanted to go with WhatsMiner versus Antminer? Is it because the form factor stays consistent all the time?
So that's definitely one of the considerations. The other consideration was that we've run both WhatsMiners and Antminers, and WhatsMiners tend to have been more bulletproof. Is what we found. We've run WhatsMiners with the same principle, the on-off principle, for over 2 years now. No problems, right? The thing starts up, it runs just fine. Every once in a while, it'll say, "Oh, we don't have a pool configured," and when we shut it off and shut it back on, it comes back up just fine. Which we actually built a program, a Python program that we run on Raspberry Pi that we'll put out open source, but it just basically checks the WhatsMiner. If it has any error codes, it restarts it. But yeah,
nice. We have a lot of heat punks that listen to this, so I like to get into the details because I can just hear them yelling at the screen, "Ask this, ask that." So yeah, just those little comparisons and contrasts, right? The things that you've learned testing out both, finding that one's more configurable and bulletproof, and That'll be very helpful and useful for people that are building their own things, tinkering around at home, or even gonna grab a device from you. So that's
Yeah.
great info.
Big downside to the
Um,
West liners though is no aftermarket firmware. That's the main concern I've heard and
okay.
actually I have myself. But just how robust they are is a huge benefit. But eventually the plan
Well,
is we're going to
hopefully
take.
things can change.
Sorry for I know it's delaying a little bit. The the plan eventually is actually we're gonna end up doing more of a custom setup where it's not what's miners sliding in there, and then but we've got some more progress to make in the ASIC and and firmware and all the and hashboard side of things on the SMU and everywhere else
Yeah.
to be able to enable that.
What sort of timeline? I know you're doing the pilot program right now. What kind of timeline are you looking at to kind of go to market or launch fully?
Yeah, so this batch of pilot run units we're working on getting them out the door this fall. I would say we're probably not going to be ready for a full production run to actually sell to retail until early next year. But we're making progress. We had some testing to do. We've got some and some documentation that we had to get put together. There's a lot more that goes into it than I originally thought going into the product
I
space.
bet.
But you need engineering documents. You need all the airflow documents. You need like all of this testing that you have to put together. It all takes time. And then of course, if you want, you got to have all the warning labels, and you got to have all of these things to make it fit into regulatory frameworks and all that. So.
What's the noise like on these bad boys? Is this definitely something more for like an industrial setting where noise doesn't matter quite as much, or um, would people not really notice too much of a noise issue, given the way you've built it out?
Yeah, so it's we got rid of the fans on the miners, and so which is the main source of the noise, right? The blowers in them are exactly what you would expect from any other industrial space heater. That's what they're using already, and so it's not going to be. You could throw it in your shop, and it's not going to be that loud. It's going to be about the same as any other furnace that you're used to.
Awesome. Okay. Cool. Um, is there any applications that you're most looking forward to seeing this used with on upon like release into the wild? Is it just for warehouses, or do you want to see it, or can it be used for like hot tubs and greenhouses, pools, things like that?
This air cooled obviously is limited in what the application or what applications it can be used in. Generally, it's yes, there are some you can go air to liquid, but there's some efficiency loss. You lose some of the heat in those processes, and then you're still dealing with all the piping and all this other stuff, right? So our main focus is really on the air cooled side. It's more with like comfort heat, air, space heating, that sort of thing, and as for applications that I'm excited to see, I mean, I've heard some really interesting ideas like airplane hangars. I've seen, I like climbing, and every time I go to a climbing gym, I see these same exact heaters hanging up there. So I'd love to see them hanging up in every climbing gym I go to. But yeah, I mean, really just any open space that needs comfort heat. So.
Nice. Are you a boulderer or a lead climber, or what's your jam?
We do it all. We we the gym is just accessible. We're in Texas right now. We're for a little while, and mostly it's gyms, bouldering. But we do ropes. We do outside. We do lead climbing. We've got the trad gear, but we don't really use it much. But yeah, no, climbing's probably our main hobby outside of Bitcoin.
Nice. I love a good bouldering. I love a good bouldering session. So let's talk a little bit here about like the enthusiasm that you have for the open source movement. I know that a lot of these things don't have a lot of like flexibility aftermarket, but like personally speaking, are you really passionate about the open source movement, the things that are being done at like the OSMU? bit axes and all the tinkering and stuff that the people in the heat reuse space are doing?
Yes, I am. I am not as involved as I would like to be. I haven't put out nearly as much stuff as I would like to open source, and I think a lot of my time, because it gets eaten up by business work, I just don't have as much time to work on that kind of stuff. Um, I think it's great. I'm probably not the right guy to ask about that, but I appreciate all the work that's being done over at OSMU. I appreciate all the work that the BitX team is doing, and I think that that open source is definitely the future, and I think that there needs to be a lot more work toward it. Um, I think, or I'm a lot more people getting involved in the space, right? I think there's more opportunity than people think, and but I, I don't have too much to say on the topic, unfortunately.
Yeah, for sure. No worries. Yeah, I think a lot more people will be interested when they're able to get funded properly. That's always been a huge thing in Bitcoin, is that the devs aren't well supported, and it's sort of a thankless job, right? So the more
Yes.
funding that these people can get so that they can spend their skills and their time and energy building out, the better the space is going to get overall. So hopefully that continues in that way, where people can get funding for that, and we'll have a much brighter future. Because I think, as we were talking about earlier, the problems, like with all tech, the problems that exist now will not exist in 5 to 10 years, as long as we can get the right people funded and let them build.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, man. Anything that you want to share with our audience about untethered mining, about the hashtag? Anything that is top of mind that you want to get out there?
I think I've covered everything I want to on the hashtag and our business. Um, I I would just suggest, if you aren't in Bitcoin, everybody, I feel like everybody that probably watches this podcast is already into Bitcoin, but
Safe
just
to say.
buy Bitcoin, get involved in Bitcoin in some way, get involved in the open source community. Like, I wish I had time to, but go do it and build something, help grow the Bitcoin economy, grow the Bitcoin ecosystem. Uh, there's a lot of opportunity out there. Don't think it's saturated, even like go get a job at a Bitcoin company or something, or convince your company that you work for or that you own to start using Bitcoin. Um, make it every a part of your life. Make it every a big part of your life, and try and get your friends and family involved. I know that's a constant struggle, something I always have trouble with, and I just wish that I spend more time trying, or spend more time getting other people involved in the space, because it's been so positive for me in every aspect of my life, every piece of it, from diet to finance to everything we do. It's all changed because of Bitcoin. So
Awesome. You mentioned when you were running the calculator that you were using your parents' area code. Seeing all the work that you do in Bitcoin mining and how Bitcoin has impacted you and your wife, like, did your parents start to get interested, or it's still like a really hard uphill battle?
they've definitely opened up to it. They put some money into our business. They own some Bitcoin, but I think, there's still it's still more of a mindset of, it's an investment and I want to be diversified. And so it's a part of my portfolio, but that's all it's ever going to be, is just a part of my portfolio. And I don't know if that'll ever change. I'm not sure. I think a lot of people, maybe down the road, if it becomes the majority of their portfolio, it changes things. I think the percentage of their portfolio that it is going to kind of correlate to uh, their interest in it. So we'll see. But I'm just happy I got them off zero. So
I feel like the more I try to explain this and educate, like, the older generation about this, the more I see that it's not really them that it's going to affect the most. It still could, but they're just so blown away by, like, the gap in understanding, like what they need to understand, to really, like, get the full magnitude of Bitcoin. And where I think that, like, they're very comfortable with their 401ks, and they know money's kind of tight, and sometimes when they go to the grocery store, they complain about the impact of prices going up and stuff. but the generation that it's really going to impact the most is the younger generation. And so I think, yeah, spending our time putting out education for the younger generation, that's where Bitcoin is going to have enough of a time horizon to have a huge impact compared to the people that already have their cushy pensions and retirements set up.
Yeah. Change on a global level is very slow. I think, we in Bitcoin that live and breathe Bitcoin every day, and we're so certain that this is going to be a part of the the future that we, I think, maybe get a little tunnel visioned and don't realize, there's quite a few steps to go from, the price of groceries went up to, the Fed printing money is is ruining everything, right? I mean, and that Bitcoin fixes everything. There's quite a few steps, and I've had to, over the years, take a step back, because I would just go on these rants about how it was the money printing and the Fed and all this stuff, and people just don't get it, right? Like, it's too many steps, and eventually, all those dominoes are falling, and I think we're seeing that, right? The first few dominoes have fallen. People are seeing the prices going up, right? They might not know why, but eventually they'll move over to Bitcoin. They'll see that they'll at least see that it's going up while everything else is getting expensive, and that it's a way to save their money. So who knows?
Yes, well said. Yeah, it's a little extreme to get the tinfoil hat out and plant it firmly on our head and start ranting at the dinner table. But like Jeff Booth always says, the marginal cost of production and of goods should be trending to zero. And against Bitcoin, it is and will continue to. And so that will eventually make itself very evident to people who are comfortable right now. They might not be so comfortable in the future if they don't have an allocation in Bitcoin as things continue to inflate in value and decrease the value of their time and energy and their stored labor in the fiat system. So we know what we know, and we just gotta wait it out. Keep teaching, keep educating.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, huge credit to Jeff Booth. He was another influential. His book, Price of Tomorrow, I believe, that was another influential book for me. Yeah.
It's a great one. Shout out to Jeff Booth. Amazing guy, great educator, and just has such a poignant way of putting things. Really, he was one of the first people in Bitcoin that made an impact on me and really drove all the points home. So yeah, he's fantastic. Awesome, man. Well, look, thanks so much for joining me today, Patrick. I think this is really going to help fuel the amazing heat punk movement and the home mining movement. I learned a lot today about your great innovation and invention and how that's really going to help drive the home heating space forward, or the industrial heating space forward. If you could come up with one thing that you really want everyone to take from this today, whether it's about Bitcoin or mining at home or heat reuse, what would you want them to take away and apply? Is there any key lessons or call to actions?
I mean, the main one is get involved in Bitcoin in any way that you can. I think I already touched on that, but hashing at home isn't as difficult as you think. Just go buy a BitX. Start there. Get involved in that way, and then start swapping out everything in your house. Get rid of the water heater, get rid of the HVAC, all that stuff, and just start plugging in hash rate. Yeah.
Love it. Get off zero hash. That's a great call to action. Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome, guys. Yeah. Well, guys, check out Patrick's company at untetheredmining.com or untethered_LLC on X to learn more about him, his business, and his invention, Hashtec. Maybe join the pilot program. And be sure to share this episode with a friend in the mining space or a fellow heat punk. Smash the follow button, subscribe button, drop us a comment, and we will see you in the next one.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Patrick.